Vengo a cantarles, señores, de un hombre muy valiente. Él viene a proteger y servir a los residentes. Su nombre está mi Rodella, el consentido de la gente.
Welcome once again to Qué Paso podcast. Thank you for joining us. Today our guest is Vince Crespin. Again, you don't need any introduction, Vince. So you had told me you wanted me to talk about my time in prison, and if I recall, I think we left off where I had been put in a pod at the Grady County Jail in Oklahoma. Anyhow, so Grady County is probably about 15 minutes from Oklahoma City, and Don Ramon, that was the name of the representative, the speaker of that pod. He was an older gentleman, actually very, very humble, very mild man. I believe he did a good job of running that pod. So he assigned me to sweep the immediate area where we sat, and for the first time since September 26th, I had a cup of coffee, and we sat up late and we talked, and again, I got so much. Man had a wealth of knowledge. He'd spent a lot of time locked up, and so there I was in Grady County. I was there for about 2.5 weeks. That's what my memory is. And when I finished, or when we came up to the 2.5 week point, they woke me up at 4 o'clock in the morning, told me get ready, and they load me in the bus, and they take me to the hub in Oklahoma City. In Oklahoma City, Vince, any charge you can imagine, any possible charge you can imagine that the federal system has a hold on you, they're there. You're talking people from all the way from cartels to mafias, to killers, to you name it, they're all there. And so I tried. I really tried hard to stay in my own lane. I stayed in my cell a lot. Read a lot. People that kind of found their way into my lane. We played dominoes. We played chess. We played cards. Anything to try and make time go by. So, kind of like it happened in Grady County. One morning they just woke me up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they load us in a bus, and we headed off to Texarkana. And Texarkana, it was built in the 40s, and it was built during the time that they were holding the Japanese. Mm-hmm. They were taking them out of society. That's where they held him. That was one of the places. So the cells are real small, the doorways are real small, and it's really old. I mean, the place is dilapidated, falling apart. The interesting thing about Texarkana is it's 7 units, and they're all under one roof. So it's a huge building, huge. Whereas you'd compare it with Seagoville. Seagoville had each unit was its own building. It was its own apartment complex, so to speak. And just so in your mind, you can kind of see what it looks like, Vince. These units, really, what they would look like is they would look like a college dorm. That's what they would look like. Obviously different rules, obviously different setting, but that's what they look like. And so when I get to Texarkana, they By the time you unload from the bus, the whole unit, the whole compound knows who you are and what you're there for. And how that happens, Vince, is I have said all my since my introduction to the system. Make no mistake, Vince. I'll tell you who runs the prisons in the federal system. The inmates do. They run it, and I'm going to tell you exactly how. So what happens is each counselor, each unit manager, each uh, administrator running that unit has an orderly, and the orderlies come from the ranks of the inmates. So the one that has the most hands-on is the unit counselor, but there's also a unit manager, and that unit manager is the one that really runs things. Even though the counselor has more input on a day-to-day basis, the manager is the one that runs it. So what the manager does in an effort to work less is they pick their orderly from the alpha gang on that in that compound. So in when I was in Texarkana, the Paisas and the Tongos were pretty much the gangs that ran the place. So when you looked at the orderlies, they came from those ranks. Likewise, when I was in Seagoville, the dominant gang were the Paisas. Your orderlies came from the Paisas, but of course they shared power with the Tongos as well. And it's not to say that some of the orderlies didn't come from some of the other groups, but that didn't happen unless they had the blessing of that dominant gang in prison. So when I land up in Texarkana, they assigned me to what's known as a day room. In the day room, usually they're 14 deep. There are 14 inmates put in a room, probably the size of. I'm gonna give you a rough measurements. I would say that probably about 20 by 40. You fit 14 inmates in there. These day rooms were not designed to hold people living in there. They were exactly what they're called, day rooms, a place where you could go in and watch TV, and little by little, BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, has taken all that away, and they filled them with bunks. Remember this, Vince. Every inmate that they hold is worth X amount of dollars. So the more they hold, the more they make. So you kind of get an idea that BOP, all it is an economy for that area. You know, it'd be like, for example, if you were to build a jail, a new jail in Tierra Maria, just for conversation's sake, and you would build it 500 beds. Now suddenly you're having to bring in people to work the jail from all over the county. But the other thing that you're doing is you're creating an economy. You're creating an economy because those inmates are spending money on commissary. You're also leaving extra beds for other entities
to rent out.
So it becomes an economy of its own. And that's all. I'll tell you, that's in my opinion, that's what the prison system is, nothing but an economy. So I get to Texarkana, and I find this out afterwards. I didn't know it at the time. So I get there, and they assign me to a day room, which is where most people that come off the bus go to.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the second night that I was there, a couple of guys come in and they say, "We need to talk to you." And of course, it's head on a swivel, man. I don't know what's going on, but I know it's probably not good. And I walk out with them, and they tell me the speaker wants to talk to you. So who's the speaker? What does he want? Just follow us. So we go into the cell, and they tell the person in the cell, here he is. So the guy in the cell tells me, have a seat. So I sit down. I'm not sure what's going on, but he tells me, just call me Güero. And he's talking to me in Spanish. Tells me that's my name, Güero. He says, what do you need? I said, I don't need anything. And he reaches back behind his bunk and he pulls out a bag. He says, there's everything that you need. Well, let me back up a little bit. When I was in Estancia, my childhood friend, told me, don't ever accept anything from anyone. Don't accept nothing. So I tell him, I appreciate it. I says, but I don't need anything there. And he laughs and he says, no, he says, this is from me to you. He says, you don't owe me anything. Very reluctantly, I took it. And in that bag was everything I needed: shower, shoes, all your hygiene, gray T-shirts. Gray T-shirts are private T-shirts because while you're in prison, you wear the color T-shirt that compound has. So gray T-shirts, those are sold by commissary. So if you go from one compound to another, that follows you. That's your private clothes. And he also gave me a set of shoes that for anywhere that I would have been, there would have been a kind of shoe that I would have liked. And then he tells me, for dinner, he says, you wait for me. He says, and we're going to go eat together. For whatever reason, Vince, I don't know. God smiled on me, but for whatever reason, Güero took a liking to me. And it created some problems later on. I'll get to that in a minute. But in Texarkana, the table that Güero sat at, he was a speaker of the Paisas. Nobody sat there. And only the people that he invited joined him. So that if Güero didn't go eat dinner, nobody sat at that table. And if Güero went to dinner or whatever meal he went for, only the people that he invited. Well, Güero would invite me to go eat with him, and sometimes it was only the two of us. And I could sense that a lot of the people that probably aspired, that wanted to be the speaker, I could tell that they weren't happy. But I wasn't in the running for speaker because I was at the Paisa, Anyhow, so at a certain point, probably 2 weeks later, Güero takes me out into the yard and he tells me, you ever have any problems and I'm not around, he says, this is the guy you talk to. And that guy's nickname was Gallo. And he tells me, anything you need, you come see Gallo. And he sat me down and he told Gallo in front of me, this guy ever needs anything, he's to come to you. If it's in the yard, if it's in there, I'll take care of it. And I knew that God had smiled on me. So for that period of time, Vince, I stayed in my own lane. I didn't try and cause or bring any attention to myself, but life was good, as good as life can get in prison. But I knew that there was trouble brewing in the background because there was people that didn't like the treatment I was getting from Güero and Gallo. And so anyhow, right about then, a law that had been implemented years before, and it was called the First Step. And the first step was meant to reduce the population in prison. And this was a law that had been passed years before, but BOP always dragging their feet, took them a while to implement it. Well, what happened suddenly, Vince, from one day to the next, people that were affected by the First Step Act were gone. And in that shuffle, Güero was gone. He went home. And in that void stepped in, and it was one of those guys that knew that had heartache with the way that Güero treated me. A guy by the last name of Saldivar, and he was from Minnesota. mad, and I could tell right away. Any privileges that I might have enjoyed wiped out immediately. Any special care that I had gone immediately. The only thing that I was able to enjoy is one of the main paisas. His name was Gustavo Martinez, and he was from Michoacan. He asked for me to go into his cell, and that was the only privilege that I was able to salvage, if you will, was where I stayed. But even that changed later on, Vince. And and Vince, I've asked you to join me, come back several times, and I'm asking you one more time. We're running out of time. Will you come back and join me for another episode?
I will.
So I can finish telling the story.
Yeah, because we talked earlier, and you were asking me about war stories, and I wanted to talk to you. We never finished about those two guys in Hernandez. Do you remember the double homicide?
The double homicide. Yes. And that actually, Vince, I don't recall. We'll get to it. But you were able to identify our suspect, and before we could get to that suspect of the double homicide, he too was murdered. But we'll come back. You'll come back for an episode, and I'll finish telling my story, and we'll continue on that.
Yes.
Thanks, Vince.
Condado de Río Arriba, quiero pedirle su apoyo para elegir a este hombre. No se olviden de su nombre en el día de elecciones. Recuerden todos Tommy Rodella.
Este anuncio fue pagado por los muchos amigos de Tommy Rodella.